of all, the memes that came out were hilarious. Like putting Trump's head on top of 50 Cent's body and playing, many men. I
Yeah.
thought, leave it up to us to take the most disastrous issue or event and make it, relatable or funny. So I thought that was brilliant there. But then on the flip side of things, you do see people like Amanda Seals and others who may not be blatantly coming out and saying this did not happen, but sort of like alluding that, hey, this was planned. All of these missteps should not have taken place. Do we think that this was a tool that former President Donald Trump was, sort of orchestrated himself so that he can look like he's a strong man?
Hmm.
And, I find that troubling as well, because I feel like if we're not even going to believe certain realities, to your point, Ashley, how are we going to get to the solution, right? Like, if we're
Yeah.
not going to believe that this act of severe political violence took place, then we're not going to talk about the real issues, which is, gun control and the lack thereof, and just the issue that it seems like a lot of young white males are having about the lack of respect that they feel, and they're taking it out in violent ways. And those are the
Yeah.
things I think we need to talk about. But the culture is like, I don't know if that really happened or not.
Yeah, and I think what I would just say is whatever your posture is on the reality of it or not, we have to go beyond Saturday, and we have to really discuss what's at stake in November. And I appreciate Black culture and being able to turn a frown upside down. I appreciate us always being able to find the silver lining even in the toughest situations. But there was an article that came out after that and said, like, is this going to make Black voters? Is the shooting of Donald Trump going to make Black voters resonate with him more? And I think we have to be really intentional about challenging those narratives. Being shot is not what my identity is as a Black person. What I want to know is, how am I going to be able to become economically stable? How am I going to be able to buy a home? How am I going to be able to keep my business afloat and profitable? How am I going to be able to keep my community safe? And so I think that we are so quick with the internet age. Look, I love the platforms. I love engaging with people on social media, but we have to do it with some responsibility. And so I think what we were trying to do at Watering Home Media is create an avenue to say, I hear you and I see what you're saying, but here's another perspective and let's have this conversation. Because if we get caught up in that incident and not really talk about the policies that allow for that incident to happen, I think we've lost the point. We've lost the thread. And again, um, I'm glad Donald Trump is okay. I'm sorry that that father lost his life. I hope that we don't have any more senseless gun violence in this country. But the only way that will actually become a reality is if we make some real serious policy changes.
To your point, because I saw that headline as well, Ashley, and there is this narrative being pushed in mainstream media that Donald Trump is winning over Black voters. We saw in 2020 he won 12% of Black voters. He did especially well with Black men, winning 19%. And some polls are showing that he may even do better in November. Donald Trump himself has said, hey, me being a convicted felon makes me more relatable to Black voters. He's even pandered by selling gold sneakers. And, we've seen commentators say, like, oh, this is really going to win over the Blacks. What is this? What is behind this increased affinity that Black voters, particularly Black men, are feeling towards Trump?
Well, first, I want to say that people are allowed to have, in a democracy, you're allowed to have a difference of opinion. So if you are a Republican, I don't agree with you. I don't understand it, but okay. Like that's what America is about. I'm talking to a lot of people who do a lot of polling directly with Black people. And some of the polling that we are seeing from more mainstream outlets doesn't align in terms of Trump support with Black folks. It doesn't align with some of the polling that folks like Cornell Belcher or Adrian Shropshire from Black Pack are doing, or Terrence Woodbury from Hit Strategies. So I think the challenge is that there is a narrative about where Black voters are, but then there's a lived experience that doesn't match up with that narrative, right? So, for example, I talk to Black people all day long. I talk to my family, who some voted for Donald Trump in the past, and I haven't interacted with 12 Black people who are voting for 12% of Black folks who are voting for Donald Trump. So I think when we hear this narrative, a lot of Black people are like, well, where are they? Are they hiding in secret? Why are they saying that they'll vote for Donald Trump to you, but not to their friends and family? We don't actually really know. Like this assassination attempt, definitely, we don't understand the impact it will have on this election. But what I will say is that Black people do not resonate with individuals just because they are a convicted felon, and we certainly do not resonate with people because they have been shot. We can empathize with those individuals because we may have had family members or friends. Heck, most of the people in America can actually empathize with people who have engaged in the criminal justice system. About one out of these statistics might be a little dated, but when I was really deep in doing criminal justice work, 1 out of 3 people in America had interacted with somebody that had been involved in the criminal justice system. And 1 out of 5 people in America had actually been involved in the criminal justice system. So it's not a surprise that people can empathize and understand what is, about having someone who has been convicted of a crime. That doesn't mean that just because you know someone who's been convicted of a crime, you think that they should be the leader of the free world. Just like but gun violence is real in this country. Young people know that better than anyone. Gun violence is the leading cause for death for children under 25. So to think that seeing somebody in attempted assassination wouldn't resonate with them, they know that very well. It doesn't mean they think that this person should be the leader of the free world. So, I mean, I understand this narrative that is out there. It has just not realized for me in my lived experience, and how people make their decision. And we'll see in November. But here is what I will say is that it is the responsibility of candidates and campaigns to go out and communicate with Black voters and not assume we are not a monolith, which we talk about in Wait a Minute, is that like the 3 Black women sitting on that set, Kamala Harris, you and I, we are all different Black women. We all come from different walks of life. We have probably a great amount of similarities, but we also probably have a great amount of differences. It is important for the Democratic Party to, if they want Black vote, if they are concerned about the narrative they are hearing, they need to go out and have conversations with Black people and not assume that it's a guaranteed vote for the Democratic candidate. Also, they need to make sure that it's, maybe they don't go vote Republican, but they also could just stay home and not vote. And so don't take Black folks for granted. We are not a monolith, but we are a determining and deciding voting bloc in this country.
Yeah, and I just want to just point out, because, to your point, in 2020, I didn't really know, Black folks, too many, who were advocating for Trump. Now in 2024, I know two. And we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten into it. One of the church mothers at my church is an adamant Trump supporter. And, I had a conversation with her, and her reasoning was, she literally sounded like she was just like spewing misinformation. She was like, well, Democrats believe in, killing babies after they're born and abortion in late term. And I was just like, Mother Ann, no, that's not true. And she was like, baby, you don't tell me, because I know what I heard. And I really couldn't, tell her too much, because what she's subscribing to. And then another person in my family, I try not to bring up Trump, because again, she also feels like, as a Black conservative Christian woman, she
Mm-hmm.
feels that her identity is under attack, and she doesn't care that she's voting on a single issue, whether it is, pro being, because she is pro life, or other things that she finds valuable. She's like, hey, this is what's important to me, and the left is not speaking to me.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel like, collectively, Black folks have always been socially conservative, just like the Latinx community. And I feel like, is the left creating space so that socially conservative people feel heard and seen in these conversations?
Yeah, well, let me just talk to Mother Ann for a second. It is completely untrue that anybody in the Democratic progressive space is advocating for aborting babies after birth. It is actually completely untrue that people in their second and third trimester want to abort babies because they just want to. Most people who have abortions or need abortions in their third trimester is because it is either the baby is not going to survive and is actually it's the humane thing to terminate the pregnancy, or the life of the mother is at risk. If you talk to anybody, any OBGYN, any physician, any abortion care provider, you will understand that it is literally a humane choice that is being made. It is a very hard choice for most women in a third trimester to have to endure to terminate their pregnancy. I think the other thing that is important to know is that the world that we are living in right now is putting women's health at risk. Right now, we have abortion bans, I think, in like 15 or 18 states, which means when women miscarriage, when women have complications with their pregnancy, their lives are at risk because physicians and abortion care providers aren't able to give them the care that they need. I think anybody, Republican or Democrat, would agree that everyone living in this country should have access to quality health care, including when you have complications with your pregnancy. Um, and then finally, I would just say is that to your question about are we making space for social conservatives? I think Democrats are a party, a big tent party, much bigger than the Republican Party. And I think we need to respect and honor where people are on certain issues. But I think we also, as the Democratic Party, really believes that every individual should have their own right to choose, whether it is whether they go to college or whether they don't, whether it is they buy a home or whether they don't, or whether it is they have bodily autonomy, control over their body. This is what the progressive movement is about. It's about having their own freedoms to make their own choice. And what Democrats and progressives really believe is that the law should be enabled to allow those individuals. That's really the idea of America. That used to be the conservative idea. And now the conservatives and Republicans have really become the party of big government that wants to be in your doctor's office, wants to be all up in your business. So I understand misinformation and disinformation is rampant out there. Some of the candidates are even saying it, but do your research. Understand what the real policies are. Just because somebody says it doesn't mean it's true.
Well said. Thank you for that, Ashley. I'll make sure I'll get this to Mother Ann. You are again very busy, so we don't want to hold you for too much time. Again, you are at the RNC. What do you say to those of us who feel helpless or powerless in this election, who say, "Hey, I'm a black voter. I've been voting Democrat, but I never felt heard." What do you say to them, and what is Watering Hole Media specifically telling those folks?
Yeah, so I just want to be really clear. Modern Home Media, we're a nonpartisan entity. So we actually fundamentally believe that if voters have factual and truthful information, they're smart enough to make the decision themselves. We aren't telling people which way to vote. Our co-hosts definitely have their own positions and they are allowed to, but as a company, we are not endorsing one candidate or the other. I understand people's frustration. Look, I've been in this system for a very long time. And there have been many moments where I have felt a loss of hope and despair. But I'll just tell this story. I started working at the Obama White House in July of 2014. It was a month before Michael Brown was murdered. People didn't know that there were tanks that were in police departments and that could go into the streets and tear gas protesters. people didn't understand the impact that prosecutors had on whether or not a police officer could be prosecuted for killing a Black person in this country. People didn't really even know what qualified immunity is. And here we are 10 years later, where those militarized equipment and police officers are many of those pieces of equipment are illegal to possess and to buy. Here we are when people are acutely aware of what prosecutors do and are completely engaged in the fight to ensure that we have a Fonnie Willis or a Alvin Bragg in places where they can actually hold people not just accountable for criminal crimes, but for crimes against our democracy. Here we are where the conversation around qualified immunity, now granted, the law hasn't been passed yet, but the awareness of what qualified immunity even means from 2014 to 2022 is vastly different than any other issue that is somewhat niche for people, that is like a police reform issue. So I know progress can be slow, but it is stagnant if you don't keep trying. And I have seen change. Same-sex marriage it is legal now. It wasn't the case when I was born, when you were born. It wasn't even the case while I was an adult. You know what I mean? I graduated from college before that had happened. And that happened, I mean, it's again, 10 years may seem like a long time, but it happened rather quickly. And I think that that can be the case for other issues. But the only way to do it is to stay engaged. I'll close with this. I say this on Wait a Minute. I always say, voting is like being in a relationship. You can have a one night stand and vote one time and never see the person again, and they probably add no value to your life. Or you can be in a real relationship. You can be in conversation and communication with your partner. And your partner in this instance is democracy, is the candidate, is the party. You can have those tough conversations when you say, I'm a little disappointed in your behavior right now. That doesn't mean I'm walking away, but I'm saying I need you to improve so that we can grow together in partnership. But that takes effort. That takes commitment. That takes an ongoing interaction. And so I encourage people to be in relationship with democracy. I encourage people to be in relationship with voting. And you know what? When you are in relationship with people and they do you wrong, you can hold them accountable. But it is hard to hold people accountable if you had a one night stand with them and you never see them again.
There you go. Ashley Allison, founder of Watering Hole Media. Thank you so much for your time today. The work you've been doing, sis, to make sure that we have our freedoms and we have civil rights, they are under attack, especially in today's day and age. But we appreciate those of you on the front lines who are fighting day and night to make sure that we are all protected, especially the most vulnerable amongst us.
Mhm.
And to your point, I encourage everyone stay civically involved. That it's not just one election every 4 years. Local politics are the politics that matter the most. And like Ashley said, like no more one night stands. We need to we need a marriage, okay? And you hold that person accountable every single day. And that's how we need to show up in order to make sure that our voices are heard, and that we see our values and we see our representation in our political system. If we do not, then we will definitely pay the consequences, and the consequences will be severe. So again, thank you, Ashley. Check out
Thank you.
Watering Hole Media. They have 3 great shows on YouTube. Make sure you guys go check it out and support that. And I'll see you again next time.